When we talk about the power of positive thinking, we're not talking about blind optimism or pretending that pain doesn't exist. Life is not a motivational poster, and reality doesn't disappear just because we wish it away. Positive thinking is far deeper than that. It begins with a simple but uncomfortable truth. The most powerful space in your life is the space between your thoughts. What you consistently think about, you slowly start to believe, and what you believe quietly shapes the way you see the world, respond to challenges, and ultimately define yourself. Every human being lives in the same external world, yet experiences a completely different internal one. Two people can face the same loss, the same failure, the same limitation, and walk away with entirely different futures. Why? Because reality does not enter our lives directly. It enters through interpretation. The mind is not just a mirror reflecting events. It is a lens shaping meaning. Positive thinking is the conscious choice to adjust that lens, not to distort truth, but to see possibility where the mind is trained to see endings. Psychology tells us something powerful here. Our brains are wired with a negativity bias. We naturally remember criticism more than praise, fear more than hope, failure more than effort. This bias once helped us survive danger, but today it often keeps us trapped. Positive thinking is not denying this bias. It is retraining it. It is choosing awareness over autopilot. When you tell yourself, I am not enough, your brain doesn't argue, it starts collecting evidence. When you tell yourself, I am learning, the brain does the same. Thoughts are instructions. The mind listens carefully. Philosophically, this idea is ancient. From Stoic thinkers to Eastern wisdom, the message is consistent. We are disturbed not by events, but by the meaning we give them. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Positive thinking does not erase pain. It gives it context. It asks, what is this teaching me? Instead of why is this happening to me? That single shift changes everything. One question keeps you stuck in helplessness. The other pulls you into responsibility and growth. Think about how often we speak to ourselves. The tone, the words, the judgments. We would never speak to another human being the way we speak to our own minds. And yet, that voice becomes our identity. Positive thinking is not about forcing happy thoughts. It's about developing a respectful, truthful relationship with your inner voice. It's saying, this is hard, but I am capable, instead of, this is hard, so I must be weak. One statement shuts the door. The other opens it. When your thoughts change, your behavior follows quietly. A person who believes they can improve will try again. A person who believes they are broken will stop trying. This is not motivation, it's alignment. Thoughts create emotional states. Emotional states drive actions, and actions repeated over time become character. This is how inner dialogue becomes destiny. Not overnight, not magically, but inevitably. Positive thinking also demands courage because it requires honesty. It asks you to face reality without drama and without despair. To say, this is where I am, not where I will remain. That mindset does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. It does not remove obstacles. It changes how you meet them. And when challenges no longer define your worth, they lose their power to break you. The danger is not negative situations. The danger is negative conclusions. When we conclude that failure means we are failures, we stop growing. When we conclude that limitation means life is over, we stop living. Positive thinking keeps conclusions open-ended. It leaves room for transformation. It reminds us that the human story is not written in one chapter. So, before you try to change your life, change the conversation you're having with yourself. Because the world you're fighting outside is often a reflection of the world you've accepted inside. And when you learn to think with clarity, compassion, and courage, you don't just see a different reality, you begin to create one. Change your thoughts, and you don't just change your mood. You change the direction of your life. Once your thoughts begin to shift, something deeper starts to happen inside you. You don't just think differently, you start standing differently. This is where positive thinking reveals its real strength. Not in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure. Inner strength is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It is built quietly, through the way you respond when life does not cooperate with your plans. Every life carries pain. That part is universal. What is not universal is how people carry it. Some allow pain to collapse their identity, while others allow it to refine their character. The difference is not circumstances, it is mindset. A positive mindset does not mean you are always hopeful or smiling. It means you refuse to let suffering define your worth or decide your future. It means you understand that pain is an experience, not a verdict. Psychologically, resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you practice. Each time life challenges you, your mind makes a choice. It can say, this is too much for me, or it can say, this is difficult, but I am still here. That second sentence may sound simple, but it is powerful. It keeps you grounded in reality without surrendering to it. Positive thinking strengthens this inner dialogue until it becomes a habit. And habits, over time, become strength. What we often misunderstand is that strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is the decision to move forward while fear is present. A positive mindset doesn't eliminate doubt. It prevents doubt from becoming your identity. It teaches you to observe your emotions without being controlled by them. You feel the fear, the grief, the disappointment, but you don't let them. Write your story. Philosophically, this is where dignity is born. When you accept that life is uncertain, but you are still responsible for your response, you reclaim your power. You stop asking life to be fair and start asking yourself to be brave. This shift is subtle, but it changes how you carry yourself through the world. You are no longer waiting to be rescued by circumstances. You are building the strength to stand within them. Positive thinking also changes how you interpret failure. Instead of seeing it as proof of inadequacy, you begin to see it as feedback. Failure stops being a personal attack and becomes a teacher. This doesn't mean failure hurts less. It means it hurts with meaning. And pain with meaning is bearable. Pain without meaning is what breaks people. There is a quiet confidence that grows in those who think positively through adversity. It is not arrogance. It is self-trust. You start believing not that everything will go right, but that even if things go wrong, you will find a way to respond with integrity. That belief alone reduces anxiety because your mind is no longer obsessed with controlling outcomes. It is focused on strengthening character. Inner strength also grows when you stop fighting who you are today and start working with who you are becoming. Positive thinking allows self-compassion to coexist with ambition. You can acknowledge your wounds without worshiping them. You can accept your limitations without making them permanent. This balance is essential because harsh self-criticism weakens resilience, while honest self-awareness strengthens it. And let's be clear, positive thinking does not mean staying silent about pain. It does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. True strength allows vulnerability. It allows you to say, I am struggling, without saying, I am defeated. When you give yourself permission to feel without collapsing, you build emotional endurance. That endurance becomes your anchor. When life becomes unpredictable, over time, this mindset reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who survives life and start seeing yourself as someone who grows through it. You begin to trust that whatever chapter you are in is not the conclusion. And that trust becomes your inner spine. Even when the world shakes, something inside you remains steady. So when life tests you, and it will remember this, your strength is not measured by how little you feel, but by how deeply you believe in your ability to rise. A positive mindset doesn't make life easier. It makes you unbreakable. When your thinking becomes intentional and your inner strength begins to settle, something else quietly comes into motion. Momentum. Not the kind that arrives in dramatic breakthroughs, but the kind that builds through small, consistent choices. This is where positive thinking completes its journey not as an idea, but as movement. Because thought alone, no matter how profound, is incomplete until it translates into action. Human beings are not changed by inspiration. They are changed by repetition. A positive mindset turns action into a natural response rather than a forced effort. When you believe your actions matter, you act more often. When you act more often, you gain evidence, and evidence builds confidence. This is not motivational theory, it is psychological reinforcement. The brain learns through experience, and positive thinking ensures that experience is not avoided out of fear. Many people wait for motivation before they move. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, dependent on mood, energy, and circumstance. Positive thinking shifts the focus from motivation to commitment. It tells you, I don't need to feel ready to begin. I begin and readiness follows. That belief creates forward motion even on days when enthusiasm is absent. And momentum, once created, reduces resistance. What felt impossible at the start becomes manageable through movement. Philosophically, this is the difference between potential and becoming. Potential is static, becoming is dynamic. A positive mindset refuses to romanticize potential while neglecting practice. It understands that growth is not about sudden transformation, but about alignment between values and behavior. Each small action, guided by a constructive mindset, becomes a vote for the person you are trying to become. Consistency is where this momentum proves its power. Positive thinking reframes consistency not as pressure, but as self-respect. You show up not because you are afraid of failure, but because you trust the process. You stop chasing perfection and start honoring progress. This shift is critical because perfection paralyzes while progress energizes. The mind that thinks positively does not demand flawless outcomes. It commits to honest effort. Over time, this mindset creates a feedback loop. Positive thoughts encourage action. Action produces results, even if small. Results strengthen belief. Belief deepens commitment, and commitment sustains action. This loop is what separates temporary motivation from lasting change. You are no longer depending on external validation or sudden inspiration. You are building internal reliability. There is also a quiet humility in this process. Positive thinking does not inflate the ego. It grounds it. You begin to understand that success is not a personal entitlement, but a responsibility to keep showing up. You stop measuring your life by comparison and start measuring it by consistency. This removes a great deal of unnecessary suffering because comparison steals momentum while focus multiplies it. Momentum also changes how you relate to setbacks. When you are in motion, failure becomes an interruption, not an ending. You adjust, you learn, and you continue. A positive mindset reminds you that stopping completely is far more damaging than moving imperfectly. Progress does not require confidence first. Confidence is the reward of progress. At this stage, discipline replaces emotion. Not harsh discipline, but gentle structure. You create systems that support your growth routines, habits, boundaries, because you respect your energy and your goals. Positive thinking here becomes practical wisdom. It asks, what supports the life I am trying to build? And then act accordingly. Eventually, momentum changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This identity shift is subtle but profound. It removes the drama from growth and replaces it with purpose. You are no longer waiting for the right moment. You understand that movement creates moments. And this is where everything comes together. Your thoughts shape your perception. Your mindset builds your strength. Your actions, sustained through momentum, shape your life. Positive thinking is not an escape from reality. It is a partnership with it. It aligns your inner world with your outer effort. So, if you are waiting for a sign to begin, let this be it. Start where you are, act with intention, and trust the power of consistent movement. Because when you move forward with clarity and belief, life has no choice but to move with you.